Okay then, so we're joined by a former Loughborough College student. Do you want to introduce yourself, sir?
I'm Jordan Riley. I spent 2 years at Loughborough College doing a level 3 extended diploma in sport, and I'm now a primary school teacher at a junior school in Nottingham.
Okay, Jordan. So
junior school.
you were at college in 2012, so that's 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's a long time ago. You was a decent student, to be fair. You got some good grades on the BTEC. So obviously from there you went on to, was it Trent you went to?
Yeah, it was Nottingham Trent, yeah. I studied a sport coaching degree. It was over 3 years. And then I took a placement year on, it was the second year. So I spent 4 years at Nottingham Trent doing that sport degree, yeah.
So that's quite interesting. So you didn't do a private education degree?
No, I when I left Loughborough College, I knew I wanted to do something. I wanted to work with the younger generation. I knew that. That's why I went down the coaching route. And I'm still very sporty, but I was probably focused on one thing during that time. And I thought, right, I'm going to go do a sport coaching degree. And I didn't really have teaching in my head at that point. But during the placement year, that was when I knew that I wanted to do my teaching, because I was working with the young children. I did a sandwich year, something that I strongly recommend, definitely, because it gives you that extra sort of experience and understanding of different things. And I was working in primary schools, and when I was in that primary school atmosphere, it was something that I just loved. And from then on, so from that sandwich year, I knew that I wanted to go into primaries in some sort of capacity. And then I think the teaching just, followed after that, really. So
what course did you do after your degree then to become a primary school teacher? What was it?
So because I did my degree, I needed to do something extra. So I looked at a master's, and instead I went down the primary PGCE route. So for that solid year you work, it's a tough year, but it's really good. It's something I definitely recommend. I mean, you can do different routes like skip programs and that sort of thing. But yeah, the primary PGCE. So I worked in Nottingham Trent for the year. You complete certain placements. So I think I did 3 placements, across the year. And you work in different schools, you do a few assignments alongside that, and you just really learn to teach. But something that I loved about my primary PGC is that there's such a variety. So you do different modules, you really, really learn like the proper ins and outs of teaching.
Yeah.
Alongside getting to put that into practice, doing different placements based in certain primary schools. So you might be in an inner city school, you might be in a village school, and it just gives you, I think, every chance to gain insight into just all the ins and outs of primary, really.
So the good thing is that, like I say, with the Masters, but I think it's quite clear to make the learners aware that you have to have good GCSEs, don't you, to be able to get onto that Masters?
Yes. You need... So the qualifications that I needed to get onto my primary PGCE, I needed 4 to 5 GCSEs, including Maths and English, A star to C. I then needed to do either A-levels, which obviously I didn't do. I went down the BTEC route at Loughborough College. And then I needed my undergraduate degree. So you do need qualifications at a high level in order to go on to that. So you do need to work hard.
Yeah, so like I say, it's English, Maths, and it's a C and above. Is it science as well, I think, as well? You have to do primary.
Science as well, yeah.
So that's a C, but also for the new learners, that's a 4 and above that they require.
Yeah.
And then obviously you have to do a level 3 qualification, so that's A-level or BTEC, and then it's a degree on top of that. And before you get then you do your kind of PGC afterwards as well from that side of it.
Yeah.
So what's the good thing? So you teach, what year do you teach, Jordan?
I teach year 3.
Okay, so the babies of the junior school section.
Yeah, babies. Yeah.
Okay, and what's the good things and bad things about being a primary school teacher?
The one main thing that I always say, having spoken to my colleagues as well, they always say the best thing about teaching is that no one day is ever the same. You'll always come across different things, different challenges, obstacles, different problems, but I know when I walk in the door, I'm not going to have a similar day to that I had the previous day. It's always different. And being a primary school teacher, you're making a massive difference to those children's lives, and you're essentially getting to shape them into the person that you know that they can be, or that you know that they want to be, and that's a huge thing. I think when I look back to my primary school, I have a select few teachers that I'll always remember and say, oh yeah, that lesson or that teacher really helped me into being the person I am today. So I think the main one is that you are shaping a little child's life, and you're giving them, for instance, I work in quite a underprivileged area, so the opportunities that we provide for them, like just seeing the little smiles on the faces, it is huge. It means such a lot, and I couldn't speak any highly of being a primary school teacher. I absolutely love it.
I think it's also important as well to recognise that there's quite an underrepresentation of males in primary school education. And
for sure.
And obviously that has an impact, obviously. So the one key thing that I know that a lot of primary education institutes are looking to do is employ a lot of males, because they want that balance between the genders in the schools.
Yeah, for sure. I think as well, I mean, I'm thinking to my colleagues, and I would say we only have 3 males. Yeah. I mean, we've got a PE coordinator, and we've got 2 male teachers. Other than that, we are. And I mean, when I go onto my courses, that I do alongside my NQT year, there is a massive underrepresentation of males. Yeah. And I think the one thing to say with that is, for the males, is that you've got to take that as you have a massive chance to progress. Yeah. Because there are so few. It's a huge opportunity for progression for male teachers. Obviously, there's progression for women, but being that underrepresentation, you also stand out. So I know that during my courses and that sort of thing, I do stand out because I am the male. So I know when I go back to my school, my head teacher often says, "Oh, such and such says this and that about you," and all that sort of stuff. So it is a huge opportunity for males to get themselves out there, definitely.
So, what's the negatives about the job then? What some parts you would like to change or didn't have to do?
I think one negative for me, on a personal note, being a teacher, I do often feel that, I mean, you might feel the same, is that I do think there's an underappreciation. I don't feel like teachers are appreciated enough, personally. Yeah. I mean, being in it firsthand, I think before I was a teacher, I was probably one of those people that thought, I knew there was a lot that goes into teaching, but I don't think a lot of people realise how much goes into it. And I do feel somewhat underappreciated sometimes. But I think one other thing is the workload's tough. I mean, it's not too much, but I think you've got to make sure that, I mean, this is something that really, I mean, completing the course at Loughborough helped me massively with my sort of organisation, time management and all that sort of stuff. And that really did help me, to where I am now, because, I mean, you need to be organised, otherwise you will fall behind. So I think the workload is one of the massive things that you can keep on top of it, but if you don't, you will struggle. So that's one thing that I would say is something to definitely bear in mind. You need to be organised.
Yeah, I think that's the same in every sector of education. I think, like I say, the workload is I always call it peaks and troughs, and sometimes where it's a little bit light, and then sometimes where it can be really overwhelming. And there's a lot of things, you've got to do your marking, your books, and that's got to be done by the next day, and it's got to be turned around quick. So there are some stresses, but I think, like I said, I think the positives outweigh it when you see students achieve.
Hugely.
And doesn't matter whether that's my age group of 16 plus, with your age group as well. When they achieve, it's the best thing in the world. You can't bottle that up and you can't sell it. It's an amazing feeling. So what could our learners now, 16, 17, 18, be doing to try and help them progress into primary education? What could they be doing right now?
One of the main things that so throughout my sort of interviews and people who have chatted to the senior leaders, that sort of thing, the main thing is go and get your experience early. I mean, before you get on the primary PGCE course, off the top of my head, I think I needed to do a 2-week placement in a primary school. Yeah. And that gives you an insight before you get on the course. But I know we completed placements at Loughborough College. I know we went into primary school for a week, wasn't it?
Yeah, to do some coaching.
But just go and get experience. I mean, if you ring up a primary school, you are very unlikely to find them saying, no, you're not allowed to come in. They are always welcoming with open arms, and they'll say, right, what do you need to do? Do you want to be in this year? Do you want to be in that year? And go and get in every year that you possibly can. Because before you get on the course, if you, for instance, spend 2 days in a year 3 class like mine, you'd be like, they're a bit young. I fancy going into year 6. It gives you an insight before you've even started. So you're essentially getting a head start before you've even started the course. So go and get work experience, go and do placements, go and do a couple of days wherever you can, definitely.
Yeah, and I think the good thing is that you don't have to just do your hours that you've been assigned to. You know, if you're there the whole year, like you say, schools would really like the idea of volunteers, and it could be just helping them read. Yeah. It could be helping them for the Christmas, show that's coming up. There's lots of different roles in a primary school that you can go in and help and impact on lives as well.
Something that really benefited me was as well, if you, for instance, on my primary pre-GCSE course, you do 3 placements. Now, I completed extra work experience before I started my course. And then when I was on the course, I was able to contact that school and say, could I do a placement here? And then I did. So if you go and get yourselves in as many schools as you can, then they know you, they'll recognise you, and then you can go in. So that's, go and get, if you say, if the uni says go and do 2 weeks, do 3 or do 4. Go and get as much as you can.
No, that's great advice. So what's left for you in your career? Not left for you, just started it, but what do you want to try and achieve? What's the next progression routes for you?
I mean, I've basically completed my NQT. I know what's happened now doesn't help, but until when I finish my NQT year, I want to sort of cement everything that I've learned, do another year probably in year 3. I mean, it's not my choice. If my head teacher wants me to go out in another year, I will do. I think I'd like to be a class teacher for a couple years, and I think with primary schools, the massive benefit is the progression. So I could become, after that, I could do a subject lead. So I'm, as you know, I'm massively into sport. So going into the sort of PE role, lead role would be good. I'm currently the women's football coach, so I do have responsibilities and that sort of stuff, but being a bit higher up, I think, would be something that I'd love to do. And then you can go into curriculum lead, so you design the curriculum that children learn, and then deputy head and that sort of stuff. And some down the line, I would love to become a head teacher. That's something I've always sort of set out. That's my long-term goal. But yeah, there is so much progression in primary schools, especially for males. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, I think I say it's great advice. There is a lot of progression. I think that's the thing. And also, there's so many different avenues you can get down the route of. So, like you say, it could be teach and learn. It could be more kind of the leadership role. There's loads and loads of different things that come along with that. So, Jordan, the last question I've got for you then. If I took you back to 2012, you said you was there, 2012?
2012, yeah.
So, back 8 years ago and sat you in one of my classes next to Jordan at 16, what advice would you give him?
I think work hard. I mean, at that age, when it's a long time ago, but when I think those years will affect your future. I think that's one of the massive things. I think looking back, I worked really hard, and I know I worked hard, but if I worked a little bit harder, I mean, what I'm saying is just work as hard as you possibly can, because I think when I look back, I don't have any regrets, but you can always push yourself a bit more. Yeah. I think, I mean, I got good grades, but I could have got better. And I think, what you do when you're younger affects what you do when you're, however old you are, however, like down the long way down the line. So I think keep grafting. And one thing I would say is, when I was that age, I was possibly a bit, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to get into, and that's not a bad thing. No. I don't think you should worry about it, but one thing that I was, and I would suggest, is to be confident in your decisions and be brave. I mean, I stepped out of my comfort zone massively into primary. I never thought I'd be a primary school teacher at all. But just be confident, work hard, and take risks. Don't be afraid to take risks. But yeah, just knuckle down as much as you possibly can. Yeah.
I think that's some great advice, Jordan. Thank you for your time, Jordan. Really appreciate it.
No problem at all.